Tonight, an emotional Damien Hardwick declares Richmond the love of his life as his resignation rocks the footy world. A female Centrelink manager
taxpayers.
Step 2 is increasing payroll tax for big businesses. Those with a national payroll worth more than $10 million will pay an additional 0.5%, increasing to a full 1% for those with a wage bill topping $100 million, on top of the mental health levy.
And ultimately, that'll either be passed on to consumers, to other suppliers in the form of small businesses, or it will result in job losses.
Step 3 will be slashing as many as 4,000 jobs from Victoria's public service. Tim Pallas hopes that'll save up to $2 billion over the next 4 years. And yet, Victoria's wage bill continues to climb, as does state debt. Victoria will owe more than $171 billion by 2026.
One needs to pay their share, and I think that's appropriate.
There's $200 million being set aside to bring forward a shutdown of native timber harvesting. That news, a surprise.
The union wasn't consulted about the decision, nor was any other party.
Future generations will be able to walk beneath some of the tallest trees on planet Earth.
I'm sure they'll be sipping their champagne tonight, enjoying all these workers losing their job.
One thing not in today's budget, the detail around the costs and timing of a whole range of road, rail and car park projects. Their fate to be unknown until the end of this year. The federal review putting big question marks over upgrades on the Calder, Clyde Road, North East Link and Airport Rail. There is money, though, for 7 new or expanded hospitals and 9 new schools being built in Melbourne's fastest growing areas, though the Education Union had hoped there'd be incentives to find and keep teachers.
That is unacceptable, and we need the Andrews government to invest substantially.
One group that did get what it wanted, op shops, given 4 more years of exemptions for their waste levies. Heidi Murphy, 9 News.
While Victoria struggles under the crushing weight of debt, the interest we pay will continue to balloon too. As finance editor Chris Kohler explains, it will soon cost us tens of millions of dollars a day.
For years, Victoria's debt bumped along between $10 and $30 billion. Not great, but not terrible. Then COVID hit and up it went. By the end of this financial year, it'll be $116 billion, and by 2027, it's forecast to be $171 billion. The problem is the interest that debt creates. This financial year, Victoria's interest bill topped $4 billion just in interest. That's $78 million a week, more than $11 million a day, and yep, every hour, $464,000 in interest. The forecast is for those interest payments to rise from here to almost $22 million a day in 2027. So no wonder the government today announced plans to cut the state's debt. In many ways, Victoria is in the same boat as millions of families. In debt, angry at the Reserve Bank for lifting interest rates and waiting for the next monthly meeting.
A Centrelink worker is in hospital after she was stabbed inside the Airport West branch. Mimi Becker's following the story. Mimi, you have some breaking news.
Pete, a man has just been charged over this horrifying attack after a 55-year-old woman was stabbed inside the Centrelink store. The team leader was dealing with a disgruntled client when she was stabbed from behind. It's understood the man had been here earlier this morning when he returned around 1:30 and pulled a knife from his backpack. Of course, this knife attack was incredibly traumatic for other staff and customers as well. They've been holed up inside helping police with the investigation, while social workers have also been called in. We have been managed to speak to some of their families.
When she saw the manager closing her eyes, struggling with her life and saying he stabbed me, then she turned around and saw the pool of blood. She also fainted.
Now, the woman was taken to the Royal Melbourne Hospital with critical injuries. She's now in a stable condition. Services Australia have released a statement saying it's a sad day for their agency and staff and that all employees deserve to be safe at work. As I said, Pete, a man has now been charged over the attack, a 34-year-old man from Essendon. He will now face court this evening, facing multiple charges. Pete.
OK, thank you for that update, Mimi Becker. Homicide detectives have publicly identified the teenager suspected of killing a 16-year-old boy in Sunshine. On the run now for 5 days, police have told crime reporter Lana Murphy they believe adults are helping him hide.
17 years old and wanted for murder, Mair Katem has gone from schoolboy to suspect and now a fugitive.
There's a risk to his own safety and, of course, whether he gets involved in further acts of violence.
The hillside teenager was last seen gripping a large machete as he and his friends chased a group of boys through Sunshine on Thursday afternoon. Minutes later, Pasom Lahim was dead. Collapsing beside a bus stop, his distraught family arrived within minutes. Police have revealed at the same time Atem rushed back to his mother's home. He spent the night with her and his unaware siblings before fleeing on Friday. Atem's family hasn't heard from the teenager since, but told 9 News this morning they are concerned for his safety and are begging him to come home. They are cooperating with homicide detectives. But police say some adults are not.
He's a 17-year-old male. He will be floating around out there. If you are harbouring or assisting Atem, they may find themselves subject to accessory to this murder.
Investigators say feuding groups from two schools were involved in numerous tit-for-tat incidents, much of it fuelled through social media. Police are maintaining a presence at Braybrook's Caroline Chisholm Catholic College, which has also employed its own security team.
There is always concern around retaliation.
2 other teenagers released after being interviewed remain suspects. Lana Murphy, 9 News.
Angry motorists faced 3-hour delays during the morning peak after Extinction Rebellion protesters blocked the Kingsway exit ramp at Southbank. As Gillian Lantouris reports, it's the first in a series of disruptions planned for this week.
Peak hour, and Kingsway is at a standstill, but it's not the usual morning rush that's causing major delays. Extinction Rebellion protesters blockading the key arterial around 8:30 this morning. Their goal?
No new coal, no new gas, and stop logging native forests. Sounding the alarm about the climate and the ecological emergency, we need to take urgent action.
Motorists were held up for nearly 3 hours after a minivan was parked across 2 lanes of the CBD road.
I'm f***ing annoyed. Push that silly old mile off.
We need to get to work and we're already late.
Bit ridiculous, not the place to do it.
Protesters glued themselves to the vehicle. An 80-year-old man chained himself to the van with a bike lock.
I've been waiting 50 years for governments and society to take actions on what we knew was going to come if we didn't take action earlier.
A police contingent was called in to direct the steady stream of frustrated motorists, preventing clashes with the public.
See the traffic jam you've caused? Yeah, it cost me a day's pay.
I've just lost the job because of this, because I'm stuck in traffic for like an hour.
This is just the first protest of many to come. From this Thursday, there is a 3-day disruption planned for the entire CBD.
By 11 o'clock, police arrested the 3 stuck to the van.
So scientists are ready to put their bodies on the line because nothing else has worked.
Gillian Lantouris, 9 News.
More Victorian schools are making it compulsory for all students to wear seatbelts on buses following last week's crash at Amesbury. As many as 12 have notified parents of the policy change. Currently, there's no legal requirement for kids to wear seatbelts on buses with more than 12 seats. Sydney is in the grip of Modi mania thanks to a visit by India's rock star Prime Minister. A large contingent from Melbourne has joined the celebrations ahead of an appearance alongside Anthony Albanese. Mark Burrows has more.
Just another visiting politician. Think again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi leads the world's biggest democracy and creates the kind of fervour other pollies can only dream about. And here is the proof. Modi Airways, a specially chartered Qantas 737, flying the faithful from Melbourne to Sydney to see their PM give a speech at Homebush this evening.
Within 48 hours, we were pretty much sold out.
172 of them, pumped up as if they're going to a rock concert. In his 9 years as Prime Minister, Modi has galvanised India's Hindu population.
It's early Christmas and Diwali for all of us in Australia, for Indian diaspora.
In Brisbane, it was the Modi Express, a chartered bus, barrelling down the Pacific Highway overnight for an appointment with their hero. Outside Mr Modi's hotel in Sydney's CBD, presidential-style security, keeping the devotees at a safe distance.
He is a saviour for India. He has freed India from corruption.
In Harris Park, the epicentre of the Indian community in Sydney, they lived in hope of a Modi drive-by. This afternoon, the Modi show descended on Kudos Bank Arena. A 20,000-seat sellout. And you get the sense they could have sold 100,000 seats.
It's celebrating the friendship. That's why we got Albo here, we got Modi here, we got everyone here. So we got a full house, like it's going to be fun, what else you want?
The last time Prime Minister Modi was here in Australia was 2014. The size of the Indian community then was just under 400,000. Since then, it has exploded to more than 720,000. In 10 years' time, there will be more than 1 million expat Indians here in Australia. Moving through the crowd, you picked up a reoccurring belief. Modi had made them proud to be Indian. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
The Indian Prime Minister's trip to Australia comes at a crucial time for our countries and the region. Billions of dollars in trade is at stake, as well as a military alliance with the world's most populous nation. Here's Charles Croucher.
March this year, in the middle of the Narendra Modi Stadium, this small step up for two prime ministers, the prelude to a huge jump for our two nations. Tonight, it's Australia's turn.
How important is Prime Minister Modi's visit to Australia this week?
India is a key strategic partner. We have a rich friendship.
The possibilities within this relationship are absolutely endless.
The sixth meeting in just 1 year, the nation's now on the cusp of a broader free trade agreement. Indian students providing billions to our university sector, while Australian resources will be used for green energy technology on both sides of the Indian Ocean, and Indian troops to train alongside our own in war games here later this year.
Australia is a better place because of the contribution of the Indian diaspora.
We have never had a greater strategic alignment with India than we do right now.
And with India sharing an often hostile border with China, strategic alignments carry extra importance. In Port Moresby, the Indian leader joining US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who signed a new defence agreement with Papua New Guinea.
The agreements that we've reached, the work that we're doing, is not about any other country. It's about our relationship with the Pacific Islands and the shared vision that we have for this region.
America securing another ally in the battle for influence against China in our region, their own Pacific power play. Charles Croucher, 9 News.
When 9 News returns, Victoria is riddled with debt, so how will Daniel Andrews get back in the black? The Premier and Opposition Leader join us live. An alleged scammer accused of using dating apps to prey on vulnerable women. And a warm welcome for the International Space Station's new tenants. Welcome back to our special coverage of the budget. Premier Daniel Andrews joins us now to sell his Treasurer's tough decisions, and he's with state political reporter Mark Santomartino.
Thanks, Pete. Premier, we knew it was going to be a tough budget. You also promised that hard-working Victorian families would be spared, but many people would have worked pretty hard to get that investment property to set themselves up. Why should they be slugged for this COVID debt?
Well, we're delivering in this budget on each and every one of the promises that we made, and one of those promises was not just to do the popular thing, but to do the right thing, to deliver a surplus, to invest in the services that matter for every single Victorian family, hospitals and schools, road and rail, but also to deal with that COVID debt, the borrowings that we had to make to save jobs, to save lives. That was kind of compulsory then in the middle of COVID, and equally so, we have to pay that money back. Otherwise, we will not be able to fund hospitals and schools properly. Property values on average have gone up by nearly 90% in the last 10 years. So we think there is a capacity to pay for those who own multiple dwellings, just as we think the very biggest companies have got an opportunity. They're making very substantial profits, nearly $1 trillion over the last 3 years. They're not easy choices, but we didn't promise to be a government that just made easy choices. We're doing the right thing, not just the popular thing, and the right thing to do. All our kids will remember COVID, but I'm not going to ask them to pay for it. We have to put down a plan for debt, and that's exactly what we've done.
One of the tough choices is job cuts in the public service, between 3,000 and 4,000. So who's in the firing line?
Well, a whole lot of back office staff. We flexed up during COVID when we were administering grants and doing all sorts of other things to get through. COVID's over, and we'll treat those staff respectfully. I know it's very difficult news for them to hear, but unless we make a contribution to paying back that COVID debt through tightening our belt, through having less back office staff, then that would be a bigger burden on business or on people who own multiple investment properties. So it's a balanced way forward, and to get that COVID credit card, if you think, it's not borrowing for building the big infrastructure that we need that makes the economy bigger, like a mortgage. This is a credit card. It's for emergencies, and we've got to get the balance back down to zero, and that's what this COVID debt plan will do.
We'll see if you can do it in 10 years' time. Premier, thank you for your time. Back to you, Pete.
Thank you to Mark and Premier Andrews. Now to the opposition's verdict on the budget. Heidi Murphy's joined by Liberal leader John Pesutto.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. John Pesutto, you've just heard the Premier say it's a balanced budget, it's making a lot of necessary decisions. Your reaction?
Well, I think it's pretty simple, Heidi. This is a budget that shows that Victoria is broke. Victorians will be doing it a whole lot harder as a result of this budget. And the question is, why are Victorians being punished for the financial incompetence of the Andrews government? Everything that's bad is going up. Taxes are going up, interest charges going up, debts going up, rents, school fees are going up. And I don't think there's a Victorian today who won't be adversely affected by this budget. It hits everybody in one way or another.
Explain more what you mean about that, though. The Premier said it's big business and it's people wealthy enough to afford second properties.
Well, with all due respect, the Premier is actually wrong on that. Victorians who are doing it tough will actually pay the price for this as well. So if you're a renter, the land tax charges on landlords will actually be passed on to many renters who are already doing it tough. And let me give you an example, because I know a lot of our viewers will have kids at independent schools. The government is going to jack up fees for private schools through payroll tax impositions on those schools. What will happen? They're passed on to the families who are working really hard to send their kids to an independent school. So there's no one who's not going to be adversely affected by this.
You must agree, though, that the COVID debt does
other measures to boost investment and jobs in our state.
John Pesutto, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Pete.
OK, thank you, Heidi and John Pesutto. A fraudster pretending to be a financial advisor has scammed more than $180,000 from 4 vulnerable women. Rick McLeod met some of his victims on a dating website, promising he could invest their money and make strong
His radio had hardly any Australian content. I couldn't understand why people weren't supporting their own more. That's why Mushroom started.
Paul Goldman is the director. He knew Michael since 1979.
What type of bloke was Michael like?
Brash, loud, always in perpetual motion.
The project started in 2019 and was going to be a 3 or 4 part documentary to celebrate Mushroom and its looming 50th anniversary. But then the pandemic hit.
The team around the film had very, very strong feelings about Michael, that the story should be told.
Ego, the Michael Gudinski story, will have its world premiere at the Melbourne International Film Festival on August 10, before hitting cinemas across the country on August 31. Aged 68, Michael died in 2021, but his legend lives on.
Long live Australian rock and roll, thank you.
Alan Ruskell, 9 News.
Now returning to Tony Jones at Punt Road with sport.
Thanks, Pete. Hello again. After the break, we'll get the thoughts of Kane Cornes with that coaching merry-go-round in motion yet again, as the Tigers' leaders have their say on Dimmer's departure.
Lachie Hunter has taken to the stand with the bumps certainly on trial again. I'll have the latest next, Tony.
And it seems to be the day for it. Has LeBron let slip on a permanent exit? Welcome back to Punt Road, and with Damien Hardwick now transitioning into retirement, the general feeling within football circles is he won't be retired for long. Kane Cornes has been looking into his crystal ball now that the coaching landscape, Kane, has changed considerably.
Certainly does, TJ. What a bombshell last night. Now, the ramifications for Richmond are significant. They need to replace a very good coach. And who are they going to get? Well, the best coach out there that's gettable right now is Ken Hinkley. So I'd be really surprised if that phone call hadn't been made. Port Adelaide have said late August, and they're not going to rush that decision. So Ken, he's won the last 7 in a row, and I think Richmond could get him. Josh Carr overtakes Ken Hinkley as the next Port Adelaide coach. If it is not Hinkley, Nathan Buckley would be worthwhile replacement, and he should be in the calculations as well. What about Damien Hardwick and where he will end up next? I'm certain he'll coach again, but it may not be next year. It may be in a season and a half's time. There's 8 coaches out of contract at the end of 2024. So like Alistair Clarkson did, Damien Hardwick might be able to take 12 to 18 months to recharge the batteries and come back, and it might be an Adelaide, it might be a Carlton, it could be a Gold Coast. Who knows which club it is, but I think he'll be more desirable this time next year than even what he is right now.
Interesting stuff there from Kane Cornes. Well, co-captain Dylan Grimes has gone so far as to declare today a day of mourning. But the Tigers have to move on quickly, and its assistant Andrew McWalter who's now been charged with taking the reins. More from Braden Ingram.
Goodbye and good luck. Just like that, Damien Hardwick was out the door. After 14 years, these were no longer his boys.
He allowed us to really enjoy the game, and I'm getting emotional now speaking about it, but he allowed us to have fun again.
The decision a genuine shock to the playing group, who believed Hardwick was as committed as ever.
I wish I'd known, so maybe I could have helped or done something differently.
We got the absolute best of Dimmer right till today, and that's just a credit to the man.
Confident they could quickly return to Football Summit, the Tigers spent big during the trade period, surrendering 3 first-round draft picks. But with an ageing list of stars and their leading man now gone, have they miscalculated?
Whilst we did invest significant draft capital, we've brought in 2 players in Taranto and Hopper that are going to be outstanding players for this footy club for the next 6 to 7 years. So whichever coach takes over is going to be in a very, very good place.
For the interim, that coach is Andrew McWalter. After 94 games with the Saints and Suns, he took up as an assistant at Punt Road in 2016 and hasn't looked back.
He's got one of those technical brains that really kind of continues to surprise you by the detail that he sees in the game.
Regarded as a potential coach in waiting, McWalter still has time to succeed this season. The Tigers may only have 3 wins, but they sit just a game and a half out of the top 8. It begins on Sunday against a red-hot Port Adelaide.
We're still hungry to succeed this year. Turning up tomorrow, we'll be dead set on playing our best footy.
Braden Ingram, 9 News.
Melbourne is seeking yet another win at the AFL Tribunal, with Lachie Hunter challenging his 1-match bumping ban. Joshua Dorr is following the hearing tonight, and Josh, the Demon Star has played a key role tonight.
Tony, the AFL has been grilling him for that bump on Connor Rozee, but Hunter, in giving evidence, says he was only contesting the ball, purely had eyes on the ball, and that Rosie actually lunged in to tap it, and it was actually that approach which was dangerous itself. But the AFL told him that he should have been avoiding the impact by potentially sidestepping or opting for another decision and way of impacting. At the moment, the AFL tribunal is deliberating on that one-match ban, has been for the last 20 minutes. Down the highway today, Max Holmes will confirmation he'll miss at least the next 2 matches for the Cats after undergoing surgery on a meniscus injury that he played through on the weekend. They hope to get him back after the round 13 bye, potentially with Patrick Dangerfield. But Ollie Henry has been cleared from that nasty ruptured testicle, along with Sam De Koning and Gary Rowan, all back in full training and a chance to take on the Giants, who themselves have lost Josh Kelly to a hamstring injury. While George Wardlaw over at Arden Street was on light duties after his AFL debut, but it was one that has earned him enough praise, earning a 2-year contract extension, while Cam Zurhaar was back in full training, officially cleared to take on the Pies on Sunday, just a week after undergoing surgery on his cheekbone. Tony?
All right, good on you, Josh. Thanks for that. To other sport now, and LeBron James says he'll strongly consider his playing future after the Lakers were eliminated from the playoffs. While James fought hard to avoid a series sweep with a monster 31 points in the first half, but he was denied a levelling bucket at the final buzzer, and post-match had a cryptic message when he was asked about returning for a 21st season.
I had a lot to think about, to be honest, and just for me personally, going forward with the game of basketball, got a lot to think about.
For the Denver Nuggets, it'll be a first ever appearance in the NBA Finals. Ola Tomljanovic is expected to make her long-awaited return from injury at Roland Garros. Still our highest-ranked woman, Tomljanovic hasn't played since having knee surgery after withdrawing from the Australian Open. But Craig Tiley revealed she will be putting her name in next week's main draw.
She's kept her expectations low, which is the right thing to do, and you know, you never know. You've got to give yourself a chance when you get in the draw. But in her case, her focus is to remain healthy.
Coverage from Roland Garros will be live and exclusive here on 9. All right, there you go, Pete. From Punt Road to Spring Street, it's been a very taxing day.
It certainly has. Thank you, Tony. Good to hear from you. Well, Lavinia's here now with more on the weather, and we'll need to make the most of tomorrow, Lavinia.
Oh, that's right, Pete. We can expect more beautiful late autumn sunshine, but next on the menu, gusty winds and showers. I'll dish up those details next. Hello again. Melbourne has enjoyed a rare surplus today, and that was sunshine, warming the city up to 16.8. Most suburbs south of the city stayed in double figures overnight, but there were clearer skies through the north, and that allowed both Tullamarine and Yarra Glen to drop to 5 degrees. But this afternoon, most spots went on to reach 15 or 16 degrees. Northern parts of the state had another frosty night with widespread minimums below zero, so they had to work harder to warm up this afternoon. Mildura rebounded to reach 18, along with Mallacoota and Orbost. A high pressure system is sitting over New South Wales. That won't move much tomorrow, but a cold front will travel rather quickly towards us, and as a result, the isobars in between will be squeezed together, and that's a sign there's some windy conditions on the way before showers arrive on Thursday, with widespread totals of 10 to 15 millimetres forecast. So Thursday will be our wettest day of the week, although not the coldest. Perth will see those showers tonight, but they'll clear tomorrow morning ahead of a top of 20. Adelaide and Sydney also heading for 20, but they'll be under sunny skies. 19 in Hobart, 24 for Brisbane. It'll be another frosty night for parts of Victoria, with a frost warning for the Northern Country, North East and East Gippsland. But tomorrow, most of the state can look forward to maximums in the high teens. Fresh and gusty winds will develop across the Central Ranges and Southwest District during the afternoon, extending into the Eastern Ranges in the evening. Tonight, most of Melbourne is forecast to dip to 8 or 9 degrees, then it should reach 16 or 17 tomorrow, 18 for Laverton. There'll be plenty of blue sky, but northerly winds will be stronger than today, and they'll increase overnight into Thursday, particularly across the Dandenong Ranges. A top of 18 on the way for Geelong tomorrow, and for the city a low of 9 and a top of 17. Then a windy night before showers arrive around lunchtime on Thursday, up to 10 millimetres for the city, heavier through southeastern suburbs, a top of 17 again. Only a sprinkle on Friday, but just 14 degrees, partly cloudy, and 16 on Sunday. On Saturday, 15 on Sunday with light showers, 16 on Monday with a shower or two, cloudy next Tuesday, 16 again. But we've got more sunny skies to look forward to tomorrow, and after an overnight low of 9, the city should reach 17 degrees, but it'll get windier as the day rolls on, Pete.
OK, thank you, Lavinia. And Melbourne, that's what's news this Tuesday. Ali's next with the current affair. Enjoy your evening and good night.